Hello, my dear She's. Welcome to
She's strong and
Strong and
sassy.
Sexy. Oh, we're getting really good at this, Carol. Okay, so welcome. Now, if you want to smash your limiting story so that you can make a positive impact for yourself and for others while having fun with other women, then She's Strong and Sassy is definitely the program for you. And we defined a strong and sassy woman as a she who knows her worth, accepts her amazing imperfect self, and is not afraid to use her superpowers to empower herself and others while elevating others alongside with her own personal growth. So hello there, I'm Joy Leng and I have Sassy Carol with me right here with hello Carol.
Hi.
Hi. So in our last episode, we talked about she and authenticity with Marie Ong. And today we're going to explore a quality that is needed in order to be authentic. And that is the essence of being vulnerable. Brene Brown says vulnerability sounds like truth, feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weaknesses. So, do you believe that being vulnerable is to show your weaknesses? The perception that vulnerability is weakness is the most widely accepted myth about vulnerability and is also the most dangerous. So, my dear Shees, how good are you at setting boundaries? And how good are you at being imperfect and vulnerable? And would your family and friends describe you as being authentic? We always feel that we are taking a huge emotional risk when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And yet, how can taking risks, braving uncertainty, and opening ourselves up to emotional exposure be anything short of courageous? Think about it.
Yes, indeed, Joy. Traditionally, the word vulnerable is associated with being defenseless, deemed unsafe. Thus, showing vulnerability means being wide open and unguarded.
Hmm. In Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, she shared about the myths of vulnerability. So today we're going to dare greatly together, daring to explore and expose the vulnerability myths that is close to home for us.
I agree totally because being vulnerable is a precursor to courage. So let's
Hmm.
dare greatly together and explore how to embrace vulnerability in our lives with our special guest. Now, she is the founder of Class Living, a coaching platform, and a Woman of Courage Asia, and a women empowering platform. She's a mother of two youths, an author, a courage coach, mentor, and speaker, and she has touched thousands of lives locally and overseas. She volunteers in humanitarian and social work projects in the region. And for her, having struggled with self doubt and fear, battled with postnatal depression, body image issues, and attempted suicide, her mission now is to inspire and empower women to break through and get unstuck from the vicious cycle of fear, self doubt, and limiting beliefs, thus living a life of courage, purpose, and significance. So let's join our hands to welcome Lilian Ong. Lilian! Hi!
Hello, hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Carol. Hi, Joy. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting. So, Lilian, you are doing amazing work. So, even before we start off the show, would you care to share a bit more about Women of Courage Asia?
Women of Courage Asia. Right. It's actually a ground up initiative and we are self funded. We are a bunch of women coming together from all walks of life, different walks of life, and coming together to support each other. We meet every month and the last Tuesday of the month. We call it the Monthly Empowerment Meeting, where we share our expertise and as well as life experiences. So I particularly like the segment about the story of courage because that's where vulnerability is most evident, where requires the ladies to take the courage to be vulnerable and share their lives from a victor's mindset rather from a victim's mentality.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful work, Lillian. And Carol is a really powerful bridge right here because she's not only part of the expert panel in She Network, she is also part of Women of Courage Asia, Carol.
Yes, I serve with the Women of Courage Asia as a community leader and working very closely with Lillian, to really grow this community in Singapore and across Asia. Very pleased to be part of this, and with you too.
Yes, so I'm really thrilled that we're all doing our part, showing up and giving women permission to do the same for themselves. So, Lillian, let's start the show on a fun note. Tell us, what do you do when you feel like feeling sassy?
Sassy? Oh, when I want to feel sassy, I dance.
Nice. Carol's one.
Yes.
That's one of us. Nice. So, what kind of dance do you do, Carol? Lillian.
Yeah. Actually, and anything, just move my body with the music. Yeah. So, or even even if without music is fine. Just get the body moving. Yeah. To the rhythm in your mind.
Nice. So really like move to the beat of your own heart, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
Carol, maybe we can invite Lillian along with our upcoming private dance lesson for our own children. Yeah, so maybe Lillian can join in and we can do that together. So it occurred to me, which it's a little bit sobering, but I thought was also a really powerful fact. Is what occurred to me was that when Carol was reading, sharing your bio, Lillian, it occurred to me that there is this very powerful common thread that I already saw between the three of us is that we have been to the depths of despair in that. Pitch black hole enough that we actually have in our own ways considered or even attempt suicide. So that was quite sobering for me earlier when Carol was sharing your bio. So, and this topic that we are braving and daring greatly together is about vulnerability. So I think it's going to be very enriching because all of us in our own ways have experienced that depth of despair. So, okay, so let's start the show with mostly the show will be exploring the myths that is shared in Brené Brown, who is a very famous, um, uh, very famous my brain is dead as a very famous scientist and who researcher who really explored deeply about the shame and about vulnerability and about authenticity. And she's also a very popular TED Talk speaker. So in Brené Brown's book, Daring Greatly, she shared about the myths of vulnerability. The number one myth is that vulnerability is weakness. How has this myth affected you in your life, Lillian?
Yeah. I think that would bring me back to before all this self-development work, uh, before when I was more stuck, yeah, in a victim's mindset. Vulnerability back then to me was, yeah, it was weakness, and which explained why I chose to put on a very strong front. Yeah, I did not know how to seek for support, or I would say I refused to seek for support because that to me is vulnerable, is weakness. And sharing what I'm going through, the struggles that I'm going through, wow, that's like show hand of your vulnerability, and I just refuse to do that. Yeah, which caused the further spiraling down of my own struggles. Yeah.
Mm. Yes, it is a vicious downward spiral, isn't it? And I'm also amazed at how women in our own way are all learning the same lessons and the wrong lesson, which is like we somehow we are taught or we caught on that, we have to be strong, we must not reveal our weakness. Which is why we're having this conversation, because it truly is a myth that is so embedded in our growing up years and in the way we show up in life or not show up. What are your thoughts, Carol?
Well, for me, I remember being told that tears were a sign of weakness, and how me as a female to use tears as a weapon to manipulate. And because of that, I told myself then I should hide my vulnerability, because by crying and showing that weakness and talking about it is not being brave. And so instead of actually seeking help, I actually told myself to get a grip and being in control from losing it. So I was told not to cry, so I won't disgrace myself, told not to share so that I will not feel shame anymore. And that, it has affected me in such a way that I was actually telling myself showing a vulnerability is actually seeking attention, which is undesirable. And in the end, I lost myself as a result.
I see that we're being taught and we're given all the wrong signals and all the wrong messaging, isn't it? And then we took it to heart, and it became our beliefs, and it affected how our behavior and how we show up. Recently, I took an assessment that identify what are the key saboteurs in your life. So, in short, what are the main limiting stories that hold you hostage in your life? And my number 2 saboteurs turned out to be hyper rational. And that was, it's not a surprise to me because, but somehow the assessment, and that's the beauty of having, scientific assessment, it really gets you to think deeper, even if it's something that you sort of already know about yourself. So the assessment got me to dig deeper about, hey, but actually, why is hyper rational one of my biggest saboteur? And that was when I realized that as a way of protecting myself when I was young, being adopted and feeling unwanted, I started to armor myself with knowledge, with strengths of the mind. And that was my way of not being vulnerable. And also, I realized that I closed up and I suppressed my emotions, choosing to focus on the strengths of the mind, because that is, and we're all Singaporeans here, especially that is what we truly value, right? Like education and so on. So vulnerability is like the core of all the emotions and feelings. And I vowed to myself that I will never expose my heart, because indeed I have equated vulnerability with weakness. And as I can see based on our sharing, we're all the same. We went through similar experiences. So as a result, I grew up with huge challenges, now as an adult, mature adult, when it comes to relating with other people, because to be honest, I prefer animals and books than human beings. So go figure, right? And that's because I don't have that skills, the crucial skills of relating to other people. I didn't have the chance to learn that when I was young. And I'm also constantly on the lookout for danger. I'm always ready to take off at the slightest sign of discomfort that I'm feeling, because someone's getting too close, too close for my comfort. I'm feeling exposed and vulnerable. But when I think about it, my relationship would have been so much more enriching. Those in relationship, especially from the past when I was, I didn't have all this realization. My relationship could have been so much more enriching if I realized that being vulnerable is not a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
So I think this is something that we all can relate to, and I think women, we close up. We have so much fear, isn't it, when it comes to being raw and authentic with other people, because there's this fear of being hurt.
Yeah, I totally can resonate with that, especially experiencing failed relationship before. And I think it's also a natural reflex of defense mechanism to actually protect ourselves, protect our heart. So yeah, especially the armoring up part, I can resonate with you.
Yes, I think we women, we armor up not just with makeup, but with many other things as well that we learned the wrong way. So the vulnerability myth number 2 is that I don't do vulnerable. And it makes me think of all the movies that we watch that often portray superheroes as being emotionless, robotic, and very matter of fact. They just go and execute what they need to do, and then they just walk off. No feelings, no emotions. So how do you think that we might have unwittingly reinforced this myth in society with what we are portraying?
I think, I mean, it applies to both gender, right? We're not just talking about females here. I think, especially in the Asian culture, where, we are told, not to cry. Yeah, especially the boys. I really like this is, you were asked, boys don't cry, you don't cry. You just bite the bullet and then you just move on, get the job done. So it has like what your question say, unwittingly reinforce this into our society through the culture, upbringing, family upbringing as well. So again, it goes back to putting on a strong front.
Putting on a show, right? Putting on a good show.
Yes. Yeah, even though, because you're told to bite the bullet, don't cry, just go on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that, because I was conditioned to think that being strong is the only way to get things done. And then the funny thing is, as you're relating to Joy, when you're relating to superheroes, and what are things portrayed in the movies, it triggered this memory of a scene that I saw in this movie, Batman versus Superman. Right? They're both superheroes in their own right. They're both really, really strong. And there was this particular scene when Batman was about to impale Superman with a kryptonite spear. And then that's where Superman became really, really raw and vulnerable. And he says that, oh, you're letting them kill Martha. Martha is actually the name of his mother. And surprisingly, both Batman and Superman's moms share the same name, Martha. But it
Oh.
was at that particular scene, right, that Batman stopped, you see. So because one superhero decided to say, hey, no, I want to tell you this, why I'm doing this. I want to stop bad people from hurting. And then that show of vulnerability, it really shows the human side of that particular superhero, which is Superman. And the way how things were being portrayed in the past and how we were being taught, being vulnerable means being helpless. And then helplessness means that you fail. But at that moment, when I watched that particular scene, recall that particular scene was like, you have to be vulnerable in order to get the message across. How it all started, how things between the two superheroes are fighting against each other because of not communicating, not showing their vulnerability in the first place.
Yeah. I think if you're talking about movies, then that reminds me of Wonder Woman. Yeah, I mean that's yes. Yeah. So I mean, you see, if you see the latest version of Wonder Woman, there is a process where she actually struggled with being vulnerable, and then she put on that strong front as well. But yet at the end of it, there's actually power in vulnerability, and it was when she chose to be vulnerable, and where love arises, and love conquers all, and love is a powerful force. Yeah. So yeah, relating that to the movie, the Wonder Woman will come to my mind.
Wonderful,
Yeah,
Lillian. I love how you say there is power in vulnerability to you really hit the core of it, the core essence of it, right? Vulnerability is not weakness. On the contrary, it's courage, and there's so much power if you learn to be able to smash the myth, drop down your armor, and embrace that power. But I guess it's scary, right, for us, because it goes counter to everything that we have learned in our life, and the way we watch our parents, the older generation, behave. I think the rational here's my hyper rational speaking, the rational mind. How can that be? How can it be? How can it be powerful, and how can it be courageous? It is a struggle, I guess, for all of us.
Yeah, and I'm very encouraged that the wind is changing. For us three being gathered here, to talk about this sensitive topic to many. We are actually trying to make a change and hope that more people will come on board, to embrace vulnerability.
Yes, I think. Yes, Lillian.
Yeah, I mean that reminds me again that when I couldn't see that, before I able to see that, I chose to keep the stories, right? Because these are all very vulnerable topics, and close to heart, and there's a lot of shame, and but when that mindset was being cleared off, that and when I started sharing my stories, I realized that power that came with it, that we're talking about. It was precisely the vulnerability of the story that carries the power to inspire and empower other women to rise up as well. Yeah, so I think that's a very beautiful reminder for all of us that there's really power in vulnerability, and it takes a lot of courage. That's why we have each other. That's why we have the community support, to encourage us to step up and release that power.
Thanks for the powerful reminder, Lillian. And something that you mentioned earlier, I could also resonate with it. We grew up with myths like strong men don't cry, right? And good women keep their household together. And these are all very detrimental to our sense of well-being. And yet we grew up and we watch our parents probably modeling all this kind of behavior as if like it's the truth and it's the way to live. So just to share in one of my Super Monday forum, and Super Monday is all about developing your strengths. In this forum, for the very first time, I actually gathered 4 men to talk about the strength of compassion. Because I was noticing some observation that, very interesting, they seem to also struggle with this particular strength. And also I get some complaint that I only empower women and not men. So for all of these reasons, I decided, okay, let's do a forum. So I did that, and I invited 4 men from different walks of life to share about their relationship with compassion. It was a huge eye-opener for me. It was a reality check. That was when I learned, and I was really humbled to realize that they struggle just like women with all these harmful myths that we grew up with. We pretend as if like to love and to experience life is not of itself already being vulnerable. And so many of us have those silent father figures in our lives who doesn't say much, right? And who seem to be, emitting this strong and silent vibe, because they were taught the very same thing by their parents, right? And we have mothers who silently bear the brunt of even abuses, do everything in the house single-handedly, silently, right? And we grew up observing all these behaviors. I think that it is time to wake up and realize that things can be done in a much better way. We can still get things done at the same time, still be authentic and vulnerable for our own well-being, and also for nourishing stronger relationship. I mean, if there's so many things kept in my heart, how much of a difference would it make if I would actually be willing to be vulnerable and share with you, and there is this real connection? Because we literally thrive on this connection. So I think that the earlier we can embrace this together, that to live and to love is to be vulnerable, the earlier we realize that together, the better.
Yeah.
So the third myth is that vulnerability is letting it all hang, just blare it all out. So what is your experiences with this myth? Because, I feel strongly about this one, having observed how people, and I have to say, I notice more women than men do that, to be honest, using social media to share very private stories, or to flip the other end, to shame other people who might have hurt them, and using social media as that platform. What is your experiences with this myth, Lillian?
I mean, it is sad and sometimes concerning when you see people lashing out,
Yes.
ranting, that my question will always be like, what's your intention here? What are you trying to convey? What are you trying to communicate here? Yeah. So I guess exercising wisdom and discernment in how much you share and what is the objective, what's the intention, the aim of sharing that piece of your life. Yeah. So my thoughts naturally will go into exercising wisdom and discernment. And my experience not so much on social media though, because I don't have that courage to be so open in social media before the work the inner works that I've done. But with people around me, I did take the courage to open up. But then I get not everybody will appreciate what you share or empathize with what you share. Yes, and some different responses, very interestingly, very different responses will come forth. Some will be very sympathetic, yeah, and they will like be nursing you into like, and you feel even more like a victim, whereas some will challenge you, yeah, and that will nudge you forward to rise up, to get out of that vicious cycle of the things that you are sharing. So yeah, I feel that we want to really exercise wisdom in how much to share and what's the intention and objective of sharing that message or that piece of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Lilian. Because exercising wisdom is actually very, very important. And that when what you shared really triggered what was shared in our last episode of being authentic, right? How what are the things not to share. And the thing is that being authentic and being vulnerable, it really isn't an excuse to be nasty. I would see that most like a displays of vulnerability, and most of the time all this oversharing in a small way is actually a call for help. Somehow, like seeking a reaction or a validation. It's just that because there isn't any outlet, because of so many things going on in a society, there wasn't any outlet. So people tend to think, if I were to just put it out there, try to be as vulnerable as I can, and then just to create a reaction in order for some kind of a validation. So there's this thin line, I would say, on sharing with wisdom and sharing because they needed some kind of a change. So I'm so glad that we again we have this topic here, we talk about it today, so that people can understand how to actually bridge the gap rather than erase the line. What about you, Joy?
I'm hearing from Lillian this wisdom piece, and then from you, Carol, about. But then again, we need to be aware that this undesirable behavior that's been exhibited is also can be a call for help. It reminds me of the. We have such conversations before with in my positive psychology circle, where about emotional intelligence, about well-being, about this topic that people are lashing out in social media because there is no education in how to regulate your own emotions. Somehow, with the growth of technology, with the and then now with the virus lockdown, not being trained, not having that psycho education, people are turning to social media and Facebook as therapy. That's how they get what they need. But it's the wrong way to go about it. It's not the right platform. It's not safe in the first place. But when you observe, again, modeling comes in, when you observe other women, other people doing it, then it somehow seems to be sending the message to your mind that, oh, so that's the way it's done. That's the way it's okay. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's lashing out at their ex partners and lashing out about the mother or the father because they are not on their Facebook account and so on. Oh, it's okay behavior, but there's nothing okay about it. If you have issue, talk to your friend, talk to someone you trust, or go to a trained professional. Not lashed out on social media, but somehow we are not doing that. We are giving in to impulse, and then I think the other the other issue, close related topic is impulse control, which is also one influencing factor for building resilience, actually. We somehow lost, we want everything now here, right? And I think some of that kind of behavior is also being exhibited here, where I want to say my piece now, means now. Let's fish out my phone, go on Facebook, and then this is my comment, this is my status, right? I can't contain it. I can't wait until my close friend is available. I must say it now. And why? Everyone else does it. It's very normal, right? So I think let's be very clear about one thing. Being vulnerable does not mean going around sharing your feelings and experiences with everyone in a public space. Vulnerability is actually based on mutuality, and it requires boundaries and trust. It is not about oversharing. So when we blare everything out on Facebook or on any other social media platform, chances is very high that you are oversharing. But instead, vulnerability is about opening up our hearts to people who have earned it. And I'm really passionate about this point. People who have earned your trust, and people who you know in your heart of hearts that these people, they genuinely care about me and I feel safe with them. That cannot be your 2,000 friends on Facebook, because it doesn't make sense to me, right? It has to be that close-knitted circle. For some of us, maybe that 10 friends. For some of us, maybe that 5. But not your 2,000 or 5,000 friends on Facebook. So, and one interesting flip side is that, ironically, oversharing or letting it all hang out on Facebook, I think could be the way we protect ourselves from real vulnerability, right? I think there is a difference between, which is relating to the point that Lillian has shared earlier. I think there is a difference between being vulnerable and using vulnerability, right? So back to what Lillian has said, what is the purpose behind your sharing? I think that we must be really clear with ourselves and why we are showing up the way we are, and we have to be really honest with ourselves about the motives behind our behavior. So the next myth is we can go it alone. So this one, I think, is especially for women, right? Like we are so good at helping other people. We are really like efficient at it. But when it comes to vulnerability, when it comes to we ourselves needing that support or that help, we don't want to ask for it. We'll do anything but ask for help. We will suck it up and deal with it ourselves, because it is not pretty and it doesn't look good to seek for help. And women is so good at this. So what do you think is stopping women from seeking the support that they need?
Wow. That is a tough question, actually, because that used to be me. And like I mentioned earlier, I think also fear of judgment, fear of how you will look in. And I think that's probably the shame that comes with by revealing your own need for support. So to me, it for my case, right, I think it still goes back to fear of judgment and the shame that being stuck in that cycle of like being the superhero, that you can help others, but I'm okay. I don't need help. I can help you. This is a constant, like, I don't understand also, like, why we are behaving this way. So but again, when we gain the awareness of our mindset and our mentality, so that will help us to move from that superhero savior of the world mindset into understanding that we are also human beings. We also have flaws. We are not perfectionists. We have our strengths and weaknesses. So there are areas that we do need support, but in the areas that we are strong in, we can provide the support. We can give the help and support. But it's a two-way. It's a two-way thing. You give and you receive as well. You don't just give, yeah, and yeah, I think it's a mindset. It's once you come to that realization, gaining that awareness, yeah, I think that's probably stopping women from doing that. They don't have that awareness, or not being able to embrace their total self, the true self, that you have strengths and weaknesses. You can give and you can receive as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And especially with the shame part, because I realized that when growing up, I always had this fear, and that I'd be shamed, and also partly also because I feel that for women, is there's this societal expectation that we are natural multitaskers. We are brought up this way, and it has been passed down through times, into tradition. And also because of that expectation, and then there's this worry, fear, or shame as well, being labeled as being inadequate. That's why we tend not to seek help, because it actually shows that, I may be seen as being inadequate. And as you rightfully put it, Lillian, it is about an awareness that everything is a duality, right? And there's always the good and the bad. We have to embrace the light and the darkness as well, and that makes us human. And partly another thing is, when what I see is also justifying the need for help. You see, when for me, I think, just taking from personal experience, the reason why I didn't ask for help in the past was because I was asking myself, why do I need the help? What for? And then if I were to ask for the help, am I expected to return the favor? And then that's actually thinking from a victim mindset and not from a victor's mindset. So I think that is the reason why what is stopping women seeking support that they need. What about you, Joy? What do you think?
I think so often I hear in coaching therapy sessions, and in fact I heard it again 2 days ago during a session. It's very heartbreaking for me when I hear women telling me, my problems are not so significant. When I ask them why you're not seeking the support you need and so on, or they say, oh, people have more important things to worry about. It really breaks my heart to hear this kind of phrases, because it tells me a lot about your mindset behind these sentences that you're saying. And as a positive psychologist, I know that one of women's real life strength is esteem builder, right? Research have established that. But ironically, I think that often it is overused, and we throw our own self-esteem into the fire while supporting others, because again, modeling come into into the equation, culture, observing what our mothers do. But that's what everybody do. So I just need to suck it up and just get on with the show, because I watch other women do that, and everyone's very approving of it. Our mothers get praised for behaving that way, right? So it's validation, like very unhealthy validations here. But the reality is, we are not built to go alone. The number one influencing factor for well-being and happiness is relationship. So we are built, humans are built for relationship, for connection, and for bonding, right? Our entire physiology is built upon it, right? When someone gives you a hug, when a mother is cradling the baby, oxytocin is being generated and stuff like that. Our entire body is designed for love and connection. And I think that it is time to go at it together with the people that you trust and with people that cares about you. So it is a safe space. And I think that at the end of the day, as I always say, and that's really like in the She Pathway book, that is like the first chapter, right? The first pillar, surrendering your limiting stories and seeking the help that you need. There is absolutely no shame in asking for help. In fact, it takes courage to ask for help, right? To go counterintuitive to everything that you have learned from your past, watching your mothers, and to say, okay, the buck stops here. It stops with me, right? Moving forward, I'm going to ask for help, because you are modeling for your children. They are watching you. Your daughters, your nieces, they are watching you. If you don't ask for the help that you need, they are going to grow up. Likelihood is they're going to behave the same way. They will not ask for the support that we need. So I think we also need to understand that it's not just about ourselves. We are modeling for our generation to see. Just like coming back to the earlier question where we said, why are some women like blaring it out, being over vulnerable on social media and so on? Same thing. Your children are watching you. That's why youngsters are behaving the same way now. They blare it out on social media. But we have to ask ourselves, where did that come from? And from what I have been observing, it came from us. They are modeling our behavior. We are not seeking a proper emotional support in a proper channel. They are modeling us. They're doing exactly the same thing. So I think we need to realize that what happens in the past doesn't have to be the present, and what we do in the present is going to influence the future, not just our future, but the future of our children, because they are watching us.
Yeah, I think what you have shared just trigger another memory, which precisely the reason that I embarked on this awakening courage journey. And I remember that I'm one of those that suppress all the emotions, suck it up, bite the bullet, present a strong front. But all these emotions are all suppressed for the longest time. And probably you have heard my story before, that that moment where I was standing at the balcony and was like attempting to end my life again. And I decided to go back to the bedroom to take a last look at my children. And they were sleeping, and because of their breathing of their tummy and all that was therapeutic enough to cause me to forget about the suicide attempt. But so I went to the other bedroom, right, their playroom, and I just dropped to the floor. And that's where you mentioned that the first step is surrendering. And to me, that was also acknowledging where I was, acknowledging the condition that I was in, acknowledging that I do need support. Yeah, and acknowledging that I have been suppressing. It's an awareness at that moment. It's like an aha moment that I gained the awareness that I need to acknowledge, and I need to surrender. Yeah, so that's where I surrendered to the higher power. I surrendered to God, and then support came. And then I need to take the courage to embrace and receive that support, which was a struggle, being someone who is, not, has been very conditioned in not receiving support. So yeah, the first step was awareness, to acknowledge, and like you mentioned, surrendering. Yeah.
Thank you, Lilian, for being such a good example of being vulnerable and sharing something so private with us on the show. I'm really grateful for that, and I'm also very excited that you can resonate with the very first pillar in our She Pathway, because the whole program She's Strong and Sassy is going to be based on the sixth pillar, and the first pillar, surrender, I think is so important. When I first created it, some people were like, surrender, this word not nice, why you use this word, you should use strength. Then I said, and I struggled with it, right? I said, yeah, I know it sounds a bit like right, the connotations behind the word surrender, but then no, my heart was saying no, it is what it is, call it what it is. It is surrender. Surrender your limiting stories. Stop being so attached to them. They are not you. The moment you realize this limiting story is not me, that is such an exciting moment where potential for change happen. But it doesn't happen until you let go the armor, let go and accept that you cannot possibly always be strong and just surrender into how you're feeling in a moment. I think that's when the real power comes in, and that's when the call for action, the call to activate courage can really, come as the next step. So in a practice,
yeah, sorry
yes.
to cut you. Yeah, you finish first.
Yeah, I'm good. So what did you want to say, Lilian?
Oh, because just now you also mentioned about, being a role model. Yeah, being the role model, and we learn from our parents, we learn from our moms, and that was precisely the reason that I chose to, take a different action, to acknowledge, to receive support, to surrender and receive support because of my children. Yeah, I was like asking myself, like, how do I even teach my children courage? And the only way is to walk the talk.
Beautiful. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm feeling my hair stand like Carol. Can you feel that when Lillian says like this to walk the talk and like she truly is walking the talk. She started
Mhm.
Women of Courage. So Lillian, how can women start cultivating vulnerability in the way that they approach life?
I think we have talked about taking the first step. To me, that's how on the hindsight, I created this blueprint, the courage coaching blueprint as well, looking at the nine domains of our life. Yeah, and there are 7 core values and 3 very important attributes, which is awareness. And then, awareness about what we have mentioned about our vulnerability, our strength, and understanding where we are, the condition. And attitude, checking in with our thinking, feeling, and choosing. Yeah. And last but not least, the last A is action, intentional action. And for me, relating it to my story, that would be an intentional action of going, accepting the invitation to my neighbor's home just to bring my kids there, to receive the support. That was a very intentional action for me. And
Mm.
yeah, so it's taking the action. Yeah, so the 3 A's. I think by now Carol also very familiarized with the 3 A, which is awareness, attitude, and action. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
one of the
for
actions is
me,
to share our stories. Take the
mm,
Ah,
courage to share
yeah.
our stories, but intentionally sharing it from a victor's mindset and
business
not a victim.
mindset. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, and as Liliana was sharing this, it really triggers because it has always been you know I haven't been I wasn't able to put the all 3 until I met Lilian. In fact, I understand, having this awareness and knowing when and what to say when you're asking for help, because in order to know means you need to be aware. And then,
Mm.
when you need to have that attitude as well, the humble attitude to be able to surrender, as you say, Joy, to be able to surrender and acknowledge the fact that, okay, I need help. Then after that is what to say when you're asking for help, because being able to ask for help is being able to show your vulnerability, but at the same time, it's actually letting your armor go. And it's about being courageous and then to open for help. And that whole process until I met Lily, started talking about it and realized, just to signify it, just to shorten it to very simple 3 things: having the awareness, having the attitude, and then taking the intentional action to do so, and then to receive. And it's very important because I feel that women, we are not very good receivers sometimes. We know that we want to share, we want to give, but we are not very good receivers. So it is important, be courageous to be able to receive. When you ask, be able to receive. That's very important.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
we need to stop being one-sided woman. You cannot just give. I'm fine. Don't worry. Then give some more. I'm dying here, but don't worry. It's okay. They continue to give. You can't give from an empty glass. You need to. It's two-way street, and I think the surrender piece here is really where when you surrender, then you're ready to receive. But until you learn what it means to surrender, it's like changing the S, right? The suck it up to another S, right? Choose surrender instead. So for me, I think that what is important is to be able to, again, back to the connection piece, able to identify the people in your life whom you feel safe with, who loves you, care about you, and then you can start exploring ways to be vulnerable with these very sacred people in your life and to take baby step, because yes, we are asking you to do something crazy you've never done before, to expose your heart. I can appreciate how that is very challenging. So only do it with people that you feel safe with and take baby steps. We're not asking you like immediately right now today, blah, everything to, even to this close people, I think they will also get a shock, right? Is finding where do you want to do that, right? And finding that safe space for yourself and do it small steps at a time, and perhaps share with them what you're trying to do as well, so that they also know what to expect and they are in the right frame of mind to receive, the new you, the you that you're trying to become. And I think the other point is to be able to notice our own behavior. Again, the awareness piece, right, from Lillian. Notice how you behave when you feel emotional danger, when you sense like, oh, there is a risk here of being hurt, right? Whenever those instances comes up, how do you behave? How does your body feel like? So that the next time when you walk yourself through in your mind, oh, identify times in the past when you did that. The next time when you exhibit this same unhealthy, dysfunctional behavior, your mind will be primed, right? Oh, wait. We thought about this before, right? I think like I'm feeling it now, right? Like, oh, yeah, I know what I'm going to do next, right? So you can then stop yourself and choose a new behavior, right? And have that power of choice because you have revealed in your mind how you behave in the past when you when you don't want to feel safe. Oh, sorry, when you don't want to feel vulnerable and you want to protect and armor yourself, choose a new behavior because at the end of the day, your loved ones, they deserve your love. And to be honest, that means that would include your vulnerability. They deserve your vulnerability as well. There's no other way around it. You can't love someone and armor up at the same time. It really doesn't make sense, doesn't really work that way. So speaking from the culture and external support perspective, because I think the entire conversation is really embedded in conditioning, isn't it? In our social environment, in our culture, it holds such a power. It has such a powerful hold over our so-called behavior that we have control over, but oftentimes we give up our own personal power to conform to our culture. So when you talk about social support, how can women communities such as like the Women of Courage and She Network, how can we support women in cultivating that courage for vulnerability?
I think, first of all, thanks for the invitation. I think this is a very first step in, coming together in cultivating courage for vulnerability. Yeah, yeah, because I like what we all have like-mindedness, as in like, we don't go alone. We pull together the support that we have, that we can creating a safe space like what we are doing here. Be it our She Network or Women of Courage Asia, we are both on the same direction, in creating a safe space for women to really share their vulnerability and inspiring each other. Because as we share, we are inspiring and empowering. Because we don't just share aimlessly, we share with, like I said, not just about the victor mindset, but we share strategies as well. We share what were the strategies, the tips, the practical tools that we have applied, and it works for us. So there are different personality types out there. We are all very uniquely different. So as my stories and what works for me will resonate with certain personality, but others likewise. Different ones, different your stories and the strategies that you apply will resonate with different ones. Which is why we need more women to come together. Yeah. So and yeah, as the saying goes, you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, then we make sure we rally more women to come together. And there's power in unity. There's power in strength. And that reminds me of one quote by Matthew Arnold. He said that he's an 18th century poet. He said this, and I love it so much. It inspired me so much. He says that if there ever comes a time where the women of the world comes together simply and purely for the good of mankind, it would be such a force that the world has never seen.
Oh,
Yeah. So I when I heard that, when I read that, I literally have goosebumps, and I told myself I want to be part of that force. Yeah. So that has always been guiding my direction in creating this community where there's no competition but there's collaboration. Yeah, and providing that encouragement for each other. Yeah, to build each other up instead of like you mentioned, the norms out there is to women, cat spies and tear each other down and all that. No, we will revolutionize that mindset. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. Yeah. Joy, you were saying?
Yes, Carol. What about you? How do you think our women communities can support She's?
I mean, I always believe in women coming together and locking arms to make a greater impact, and then that's the reason why I'm actually part of expert panel in She Network and also a community leader with Women of Courage Asia. Because for me, it's not about this is mine. It's like if what you have, you can give. Because we're women, we're so good at giving, right? So and having a community is to showing them, and I love what Lillian had said, leading by example, taking the courage to take the first step, and also showing them how to surrender. Because other things, like a lot of people have a lot of conversations about certain sensitive topic. They say that what you should do be doing, but the thing is that no one shows people how to do it. So I feel that having communities like She Network and Women of Courage Asia is that it is a safe space to show people how to surrender, and then leading them to give them a safe space, to give them guidance. Okay, then that's very important, because once we have the awareness, we need to have an attitude, and then the action is showing them, giving the guidance to take the action, and being safe is very, very important. And this is what community, the power of community.
I'm loving this because based on your sharing, Lillian and Carol, I know that I'm with the right woman, I'm with the right people. We are definitely all walking in the same direction. Because for me, I think the key is to ensure, especially as the leaders in the community, to ensure that the culture inside the community is a nurturing space where women can feel safe enough to discuss such topics, because this is not something that you might even say to other women, even if they are your close girlfriends, because those girlfriends, maybe they're not ready for this vulnerable piece in their life, right? You're close in other aspects, but you're ready to take on this journey to be more authentic. You need to find a right woman who is ready for that same journey as well. So I think that as women leaders, it is our responsibility to make sure the culture inside is of the right tone. And that's something for me, to be honest, it's still a learning process, because I can't say that I've got it all nailed down. I'm learning as I go, but the good thing is my training in positive psychology make that something that's very top of mind for me constantly, ensuring and always monitoring the vibe inside the community, whether people are feeling comfortable, feeling safe to share. And you can tell based on the things they're sharing, the words they use, whether they're feeling okay or they're just sharing very generic things and being and you can sense an armor. So I think we as leaders need to cultivate, I guess, that intuition as well, to know whether our community is having the right vibe that ensure the best sense of psychological safety. And the other point, like what Carol has said, is for me is about, once you have that culture, that safe space, it's really about creating learning opportunities, again, shows like we're having right now, learning opportunities to learn the right skills so that they can show up authentic, and we can dare greatly together, literally. Willingness is one thing, right? It's the attitude piece, as Lillian has shared. But okay, I'm ready, but how, right? Like, I don't know how. I've never done this before. Very scary, but okay, fine. You have persuaded me. I'm willing to do. So I think we need to teach them, because it's like a baby trying to get out and walk. Okay, I don't know how to do this. How do I do? And then cycle is different from walking. So I walk all my life. Now you're asking me to cycle. I'm ready, but I don't know, where do I put my feet and how do I pedal? But I feel so unstable, so scary, right? So I think that we also need to equip them with skills, technique, practical ways, simple ways that has worked for us. And then like what Lillian has said, different things work for different women. We're all so different. So, and we have our different contexts. So when more of us are willing to show up and share, be vulnerable and share what works for us, so I can go and pick the tips and try from all the resources in this safe space that I have. And that's, I think, is the greatest opportunity to cultivate that courage for vulnerability. Because I think first and foremost, with the community that I'm in, I no longer feel like I'm alone.
Perfect.
Wow, we have really gone very deep. I'm loving this conversation. It's amazing. We really need to have more of such conversations out there, besides the typical topics like entrepreneurship and marketing, but affairs of the heart. We really need to tend to our heart, to be courageous, to be strong and sassy. We need to address what matters the most. All these inner resources that we can cultivate and we can grow together. So Lillian, what is your final tip for women when it comes to cultivating vulnerability?
final tip. Offhand, I'm just reminded of another quote that have helped me a lot, and that is by Saint Francis of Assisi. He said that start by doing what is necessary, and then you do what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. Yeah. So ask yourself the question, what is necessary now? What is the necessary steps? And it goes back to what we have been talking. I think the first step is awareness, right? And awareness empower us with a choice. For change to happen, you need an intentional action for change to happen. So yeah, do a check-in with yourself. If you do not know the how to, they always seek for support, seek help, right? There are coaches around and in the safe community that you can do a check-in with. Yeah. So yeah, start by doing what is necessary, then you do what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. That's by Saint Francis of Assisi.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And for me, it's being aware that the world works on duality, and having the confidence to embrace and to be with yourself, to be yourself, without the armor, without the walls, and then being able to feel like you're able to share in a safe space. And it is actually very important to have that awareness first, and then the attitude, and then taking conscious intentional action towards the final destination. That's for me.
I think in the name of love, which is also vulnerability, they commit to unlearning all the unhealthy ways of being that we have embraced and we have taken as identity. Find your tribe and start relearning what it means to show up, to be authentic, to be vulnerable, and also to encourage others in your sacred circle, whichever space that you have chosen to put yourself in. Encourage others to do the same. And I think the best way to encourage others people to do the same is to start your walk, start your path yourself. Because I think fear is contagious, but courage, so is courage. And I think if either direction is contagious and people are always watching what we do, possibly trying to emulate what we do, then I think choose carefully, choose courage, and really choose authenticity and vulnerability. So I think this would be my final tip. Thank you, Lillian, for coming on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for the invitation. And in addition to that, just one more thought, that I want to encourage the audience is the women out there is that your life, unfolds to the proportion of your courage. Yeah. So take that courage, awaken the courage in you, really embrace your true identity, and really be planted in a supportive and loving community. And yeah, take the courage to be you.
Beautiful. And at this moment, I'm very curious, Carol, how does it feel like for you, to be in this conversation with me and with Lillian, you've been working with both of us. How does it feel like right now for you?
Well, it actually solidifies the entire, my own personal belief, that women should come together. And, having this conversation, it really feels so relaxed. It's like we are just three friends, just coming together, talking about, having a conversation about just any topic. In fact, this topic feels heavy to most, but it felt like this is so much about us. In fact, yeah, I don't really know how to describe it, because the feeling that I'm feeling right now is a lot deep. I don't have the words to describe. It feels very powerful. I guess we're able to sum it up. It feels really, really powerful. And it feels that something is happening. The change is happening, and we are part of this change, this whole wave of women coming together. It's incredible. Very incredible.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that is exactly why I resonated with that quote, by Matthew Arnold. This is the time where we come together, where women come together and be that force. Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, Lillian, for coming on the show. You have made this such a precious conversation and being vulnerable and sharing your own very private stories in order to reinforce your learnings and your sharing. Very grateful to have your presence and your wisdom with us. So I think let's be the change. And I think that we have already begun in that journey. So, okay, so now let's end the show with our lotus pose. Thank you, thank you. Thank you all for watching. Please share this and share with the men in your life as well so that they can understand you better. And actually, we also talk about men in our conversation and the struggles they did. So it's really a show for everyone. Thank you for watching. Till the next episode, everyone, be well and be strong. Take care.